Hello, and welcome to the Doofcast, the official variety podcast of doofmedia.com. My name, Rango.
And I'm Rattlesnake Matt.
Matt, you can't also pretend to be a badass gunslinger. That's my whole thing.
Who said I was pretending?
Such a good Bill Nye impression. I love it so much. This week on the show, it is another one of our patron-produced episodes. And these are the episodes where folks who pledge to us on Patreon at the Doof Warrior level or above, that's patreon.com/doofmedia, get to select a movie or a short story for us to do an episode of this podcast on. This week, our patron CaptainRhino asked us to take a look at the 2011 animated feature film, Rango. So we're going to talk all about Rango, Matt. I think this is a movie that neither of us had seen before.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about how that happened. It's going to be a full spoilers discussion of this movie. And I think it's going to be really, really fun.
Yeah, can't wait.
Then, Matt, you published an article. You wrote something. We don't do that often these days. But
yeah, it's been a while.
You wrote an article this week on your kind of principles of reading charitably or watching charitably, consuming media charitably, which is something I think that both you and I have talked about a lot over the course of our many, many podcasts, kind of the way we approach media. And I thought it'd be fun to just kind of talk about that for a bit, and talk about, maybe dive into the words a little bit more and talk about what they mean and how we do this and why we do it. And I just wanted to chat with you about it.
Yeah.
The second I read it, I was like, I want to talk to Matt about this. And therefore, I'm going to do it in front of a microphone because why not?
Yeah, I think we developed this approach in tandem, and I just decided I wanted to sit down and actually put it into words, put what was in my mind into words. Yeah, it'd be good to talk to you with you.
Cool. And then lastly, we are going to take a look at the results of last week's vote on our Council of Doof episode on Stardust. So did Stardust make it into the Doof canon? Well, you'll have to wait until the end of the episode to find out. So stay tuned, go through the other stuff, and then we'll talk about Stardust.
Yep.
All right. So let's just go ahead and move right into it. It's a stuffed episode, so let's move right into our discussion of Rango.
Here in the Mojave Desert, animals have had millions of years to adapt to the harsh environment. But the lizard? He's going to die.
Ow! What was that for?
You're a stranger. Strangers don't last long here.
Matt, what is Rango about?
Rango is an ordinary chameleon who accidentally winds up in the town of Dirt, a lawless outpost in the Wild West in desperate need of a new sheriff. Written by John Logan, who also wrote Gladiator, The Aviator, and The Last Samurai, and also Star Trek Nemesis.
Yeah, we don't talk about that one.
And directed by Gore Verbinski.
Oh my gosh, Matt. We got so much to say about this movie, but let's start at the very top. What were your overall thoughts? What were your high-level thoughts on Rango? We just said we hadn't seen it before, so this was a new one for both of us.
I mean, I guess I just loved it. I guess, is that a high enough level? Like,
Sure.
Like, pretty much the whole movie, I was like, this came out in 2011. How did I miss this? Mm-hmm. This is it's so fun. It's so enjoyable. It's so well put together. It's so clever. My kids enjoyed it just as much as I did, which is, I think, rare actually. It's rare that something kind of hits both kind of demographics equally well. Mm-hmm. I thought it was great, and I was just basically my headline thought is, how did I miss this? How about you?
Yeah, I mean, the weird thing is I knew of this movie, right? And I thought I had watched it before. I really did. But as I went through the movie, I was like, no, I don't remember this at all. Like, I had a very loose memory of it. Like, Johnny Depp Lizard goes into town and becomes sheriff. And maybe what happened is I literally turned it on one night years ago and just fell asleep and never finished it. So I thought I knew what I was getting into, and I did not know at all. And yeah, it was so much fun. Oh my God. This is it's Verbinski doing this kind of like very vintage Western story, but in this really fascinating way. And I want to talk about Gore Verbinski, the director, a lot in this episode because I love him. And this is such a Verbinski movie. I can't even stand it. And I like, it's just this fascinating little thing where it's confusing in a way because like it's so good and it's so weird. And I just like, a part of me is like, who's this for? But part of me is like, I know exactly who this is for. And it's wild. It's wild.
Yeah.
Like we're going to talk a lot about the story and how the story is kind of grabbing onto very traditional Western tropes, very traditional Western stories, but it's doing it in a really fascinating way.
Yeah, for sure.
So let's start. Let's start with our main character, Rango. See, Matt, he's a chameleon. He's a chameleon, and he also changes personalities a lot.
He tries to become somebody else because he feels like he's nobody. Mm-hmm. And this is his struggle as a character, is realizing that he can be whoever he wants to be, actually. Mm-hmm. And it's great. It's perfect. Mm-hmm. Everything's perfect.
All right, that's it. That's the conversation. We did it.
Yeah.
No, so obviously Rango, like, so the movie begins with Rango as a pet, right? He's a pet chameleon, and there's this wonderfully bonkers scene that if you didn't watch the trailers of this movie or didn't know what to expect, you're like, what is this? Because it's him doing a performance with plastic toys in a I forgot, a terrarium.
Yeah, this is crappy little terrarium with like no stimulation. He's just keeping himself occupied by setting up little plays. Yeah,
he's got this amazing Hawaiian shirt that just looks wonderful. That is one of these, like, the most confusing question of this movie is like, is what? Because like they have this, all the animals have this whole little world, and they all wear clothes, and humans exist. But it's just so confusing. Did his owner know that he was wearing a Hawaiian shirt? I don't know.
It's sort of a magical realism type universe, you know? I mean, I still haven't figured out why the armadillo was clearly had been run over and then was like fine in the next scene. Like
it's magic, man.
It's magic, right? And I'm fine with it. Like once it establishes, like, okay, it's kind of a magical realism Western psychedelic spirit journey of a movie, right? Like, I mean, it's explicitly a spirit journey of a movie. It basically he goes on a vision quest type thing at one point.
Yeah. And I mean, this is such like the weird thing about this movie is a lot of the story is just a very traditional, standard, tried and true kind of hero's journey story. I mean, not only a hero's journey, but the twist on the hero's journey that the main character is faking being what he is, right? Like this someone walks into a place, pretends to be something he's not, and because of that lie, he gets himself roped into something that's over his head, and then eventually he grows to realize that no, he's not an over his head, that he can be this person, that he can be this hero he wants to be, and he steps up to the challenge and saves everyone. Hooray. That is one of the most well-worn stories in storytelling. And yet it always to me felt fresh and new and interesting. Like I think you can tell where it's going to go from the very beginning, but it's just so weird that the ways it gets there are always fascinating. I mean, like this has some of the most incredible voice cast ever. Yeah. Like the names on this movie are just crazy. I mean, like I'm as a person pretty mixed on Johnny Depp at times. I think he's the perfect person to play this role. Actually, he can capture the suave, cool looking dude while also capturing the eccentric, like crazy in over his head character at the same time.
Yeah, for sure. He's not overdoing it. I think he works really well. Like for an actor who's known for really overdoing it sometimes, I think his is actually the most restrained performance in the whole thing. Mm-hmm. You've got like Bill Nighy absolutely chewing it up in there.
Yes.
And relative to him, Johnny Depp is playing, I mean, like you said, he's expressing what he needs to express, but it's a bit subdued. like the character design gets to speak louder than the voice acting.
Yeah.
If anything, like I just love I love the art style, because like, yeah, that's what's crazy about it, is it's very realistic, but it's not at the same time, it's not like,
Yeah.
like that's one thing that shocked me about it coming out in 2011, is I was like, wow, this looks cutting edge. Like this looks perfect, and all of the animals, they're like, yeah, that's clearly like a very hyper realistic sort of like snapping turtle or whatever it's supposed to be, but also it's in this, it is kind of an anthropomorphic snapping turtle, but in a way that's like creepy and ugly.
Yeah.
Like everything is kind of gross and scary and ugly.
Yeah, it's all hideous. It's all hideous. It's so like, even the hero Rango, like he has this like this crick in his neck.
Yeah.
And his one eye's bigger than the other, and it's just his like mouth is not like, nothing about him is symmetrical at all.
Yeah, and like he's got weird little chameleon eyes that are like the most unappealing feature of the chameleon.
Right.
Yeah, but it all, like I love it. I love it. Mm-hmm. Like it reminds me of. I mean, yeah, like you said, it's absolutely Gore Verbinski. I love Mouse Hunt. Mouse Hunt is I just adore Mouse Hunt. I didn't even realize that was Gore Verbinski until I looked it up. But like just the grossness of everything, but in a very, like, it feels like a fairy tale, I guess. I think that's why my kids loved it, is like, I've always loved, we talked about this recently, just the idea that like kids actually like things to be a little bit scary.
Yeah. And a little bit gross.
A little bit gross.
Yeah, I mean, that's absolutely what this is. Like, everything about it is grimy. And I mean, they live in a town called Dirt, right? This is the town that Rango goes to and finds himself inadvertently the sheriff of, is a town called Dirt, who's suffering from a severe water shortage to the point where water has become their currency. I love the water bank. That's such a wonderful concept. Like everything looks like it was taken from the world of humans but built by rodents. And it's so fascinating. It looks grimy and gross, all the characters. You got that one guy with like just an arrow is just through his body, like through an eye and
through
out
his head, through one eye out the back of it. Like, I'm gonna headcanon that this is in the Redwall universe, because that makes me love it even more. Yeah,
I mean, it does feel at place there. Like it's weird. But at the same time, the thing that I love the most about it is the character designs are so distinct and so original. And yet, the way Verbinski shoots this movie, it just feels like a Western. It just feels like a Western in the classic sense. The colors, the way he uses like these very wide panorama shots of the Old West, and with the steppes in the background, like the plateaus. It just looks like beautiful. And then you just stick our wonderfully weird character designs in it, and it's just like I kept laughing throughout the whole thing, because like there's the final confrontation of the movie is Rango against the snake, against Bill Nighy's I forgot what, Rattlesnake Joe, I don't remember his name, Rattlesnake Jack, yes, because it all rhymes, and like they're both approaching each other in the middle of this the dirt road in the middle of the town, and Rango is walking there, and it cuts to this far shot of 3 nooses, and Rango is walking through one of the nooses, and it's this powerful, like expressive, beautiful looking cinematic shot, but he's a fucking chameleon. Like it's just the movie is often beautiful and breathtaking, and the composition is just incredible. It's so well shot, and I think the combination of this movie that is so well shot with these character designs that look so goofy and gross, it just constantly entertained me. Yeah,
there's a huge amount of attention to like the physicality of things. Like I have like a mental list of stuff that just tickled me absolutely. Like for example, like Rattlesnake Jack. He's a rattlesnake. Mm-hmm. But like, so for one thing, like the way he moves, the way he does his like sidewinder approach, the first time you see him, you're just like, your jaw sort of drops at how much of a mood that is. Yeah. And then he uses his machine gun that's on his rattle as like an appendage to grab stuff and manipulate it. And you're always like, oh, that works actually. Like it's so cleverly like at no point are you like knocked out of the immersion in the movie due to, you know, the little things like that. I mean, the whole intro sequence, I don't even know if I want to call it the intro sequence, like the whole first act almost, where he falls out of the car. From the moment he falls out of the car until basically he finds dirt, this is like a crazy sequence of increasingly escalating, like ridiculous, like physical things happening. Where like the glass breaks and he like skitters along the road on the piece of glass, and then like he's like getting launched back and forth between the cars by like bicycle spokes and antenna ornaments, and you know he passes by Johnny Depp in a car
in Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas.
Fear and Loathing.
It's perfect.
Who I believe he says like it's another one of them.
Yeah.
Which is the perfect thing to say. I died. But
so
like
good.
the whole, like just the kind of the like it's gonna be a weird pull, but like it reminds me of like stuff from Who Framed Roger Rabbit, where it's sort of a Looney Tunes, like the fun of it is the inventiveness of the physicality of the situation. And that's sort of floating all around the movie, aside from the fact that the story is great and the imagery is great and the acting is great and
I loved in that moment, like that whole sequence is great, and then the sequence finally slows down when he finally comes to arrest, and the moment where his skin like dries up and flakes off twice in a row. I don't know. There's something about that just felt so tactile and disgusting that I just loved it so much.
Yeah.
There's so many bits in the movie like that. I love that you brought up Rattlesnake Jake, because I think the sound design on his movements was really good, because not only does he have to sound like a snake moving, but he's a snake moving that is wearing like a bandolier of bullets on top of having a machine gun rattler. And so he always like clinks and clanks in like a very distinct kind of way. And it just made him feel heavy. It like added to his presence. He's already bigger than every other character in the show by just on account of his species, but I just like, it felt so real. It felt so I think that's you're spot on with what you said, that it feels both real and absurd at the same time, and I think that all works in its favor.
I don't know how you do something like this, honestly. Like it's really quite, because like you said, I mean, it doesn't miss a single stitch in the whole execution of the Western storyline. Like you've got all of these great tropes. Like I love the moment when you know the mayor is like calling Rattlesnake Jake, and one of his cronies is like, but Rattlesnake Jake's the Grim Reaper. He don't leave without a soul, or something like that. And then it's like, that's perfect. And then at the end, he leaves with the mayor, and you're like, yep.
Yeah.
That's the exactly correct way to do that.
Yeah. And I mean, you knew the mayor was the bad guy like instantly, right? It's just like it's Ned Beatty playing the mayor, and it was just a wonderful performance there. But yeah, he's definitely the bad guy right away. I mean, like even like the tale of like people and water rights being like the thing that keeps a town going is just, that's like a Western thing. Like remove the animals. Like there's been so many Westerns that have been talking about people fighting over water rights for a town and using that to gain control and power. And it's just like, it's such a fun idea, but also lizards. And it's really good. It's really good.
Yeah. God.
I want to talk about the set pieces. Which are some of the most Gore Verbinski things ever. I mean, the funniest thing I read about this movie was that Gore Verbinski finished the Pirates trilogy, and he's like, I want to do something small next. And the small thing he did was Rango, one of the most insane, absurd, like action-y movies I've ever seen. Like this canyon chase set piece where they, you know, confront were those moles? Or I couldn't. Were they prairie dogs? I couldn't tell.
Good question. I think I thought they were supposed to be moles. I thought one of them looked kind of like a mole. None of them really looked like prairie dogs to me. But
none of them look like. I think they are moles because one of them's blind, and that's the joke. Like this confrontation with the bat riding moles in the canyon is like some of the most absurd, grandiose like set piece design ever. Like the moles are riding bats, and the way Verbinski films it and the way it's animated. The bats are like, we're supposed to see these as airplanes because when they run into things they explode. They don't really explode, but like there's a plume of fire every time they hit each other or they run into things.
With Ride of the Valkyries playing over it, which I was just that was one part where I was just grinning. I was like, I hope this is how my kids always remember Ride of the Valkyries is as the song from Rango, because it's such a great use of it.
And it's so Verbinski too. Like I think the Pirates of the Caribbean movies have gotten a bad rap. Probably because the latest two have just been legitimately terrible. But I will actually ride or die for those first three movies. And I think I think that trilogy is one of the best like trilogies of the last couple decades. It's really, really good, actually. And I mean, the final Pirates movie, the final Gore Verbinski Pirates movie, has two ships circling each other in a whirlpool while Johnny Depp's Jack Sparrow and Davy Jones, like, who is a fish man, like a squid fish man, are having a sword fight on the top of a ship on a sail like mast. It is insane. It is insane. It is enormous. It is gigantic, and that's what this canyon scene reminded me of. Like Gore Verbinski can't help himself, where he just says, "I'm going to do a small movie, but we got to do this fucking set piece where." This wagon's getting bombarded by moles riding on bats with machine guns, and like Rango, like it there were parts of this movie, and maybe it was just the water thing, but I was like, am I watching Fury Road again?
Yeah, I was thinking about Fury Road during that part especially. I literally was like, okay, we've got bumping music. It's actually mostly Hans Zimmer, by the way. Hans Zimmer is the composer.
Wow.
For the movie in general. And then you're having a desert chase through a canyon with, I think at some point we need to do a show on the first three Pirates movies, because I do think the first one is a legitimately great movie. I think you're going to have to help me out with the second pair of sequels. But the point that I was going to make is, like, that's my favorite thing about Verbinski is he can do these bombastic, insane action finales, like the finale to this movie, or the finale to Mouse Hunt where the whole house explodes, or the finale to Pirates 1, which is still pretty awesome, where there's like this, multi-setting, rotating through multiple locations, sword fight between skeletons and stuff. But you're still desperately involved in the characters and the stakes. Right. And at no point do you lose track of or lose emotional investment in the story. And like, that's what's missing from so many things that even things that I like on the whole. I just kind of, when I'm watching the action finale, I'm like, yep, this is pretty visually cool, I guess. But you forgot to like anchor me in the characters before. I'm just very sensitive to that as a film watcher.
And Verbinski likes in these set pieces to always have a character that's kind of like the accidental success, which is just what Rango is in the first half of this movie. Like when he kills the bird, when he like the entire set piece where he's just like getting flung into the air and dropping on a bat perfectly and then accidentally running that into, like, it's just a comedy of errors almost that are just propelling him to success. And I think that is probably a thing that kids really love. That is a design for children, that like seeing like the physical comedy of him getting flung around, but it's always good and always advancing the story forward. I think is really fun.
Well, I've always thought this was the key to good action, honestly. Like I've said numerous times on this podcast that like the reason why Harrison Ford is a great actor, or well, okay, that's not how I phrase it. The reason why everyone loves him as Han Solo and Indiana Jones is that he's playing up the elements of those characters that are kind of buffoons, but not a complete buffoon. Like they're both still cool, but they screw up all the time, and then they kind of like try to brush off the fact that they screwed up, like that, and that's so much more endearing than just like being straight oh, he's so cool, he did it. Like, no, Indiana Jones gets his ass kicked, and you can tell from Harrison Ford's face that it hurt when he got his ass kicked. Which and that's how to do. I don't know. I have strong opinions about how to do action. In a way where you actually care about the character. I think a lot of it has to do with that. Make it seem like the character isn't actually that awesome. They're barely getting through this by the skin of their teeth. That actually gets you invested in a way that just a total badass often can't.
Sure. Yeah. Verbinski does that super well. And I want, like, we're coming up on the end of our series on David Fincher, and I would actually love to do a deconstructing Verbinski series. Because I think that I would even talk about this movie again. I would do it. But anyway, let's finish talking about this movie the first time, and then maybe we'll do that. So again, to go back to a lot of our, like, I feel like it also shifts into this at the beginning of the third act, or actually I think it's the end of the second act, basically, where Rango is exposed. There's that wonderful scene, like every movie where a character is lying to the people he cares about, and he does it at first as like a gimmick because he thinks it's fun, and then he grows to like them, and then you've grown to like them, and you know this lie is going to be exposed eventually. I mean, like, it's Galaxy Quest, right? And so he, like, leaves town, gets kicked out of town, and goes on his spiritual journey across the road. And it's so trippy and wonderful. And, like, I love the parts of that where you don't know, is he imagining this or is this really happening? Because he comes across a human played by Tim. This it's the Spirit of the West, I think, is what it is in the credits, and it's played by Timothy Oliphant. Correct me if I'm wrong, doing a Clint Eastwood impression. The guy looks like Clint Eastwood, and I think Timothy Oliphant is, like, doing Clint Eastwood.
He's absolutely doing Clint Eastwood, and he's wearing the serape of The Man with No Name from For a Few Dollars More, the classic Western film. It's absolutely supposed to be that specific reference. I'm pretty sure.
Perfect. Yeah. I mean, this is the film referencing the fact that it is doing Western. It is doing Western. Like, I would love, actually, if this is children's introduction to the genre, right? That, like, a child watches Rango and says, I loved that movie. I loved Rango. And it's like, okay, well, here's all these Westerns that is basically that, but not a chameleon.
Yeah, these Westerns are actually based on Rango. They're the human version of Rango.
Human Rango. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and so he comes across Clint Eastwood, who gives him direction, and then, like, the cactuses start moving, and you're like, is this happening, or is this another, like, trip sequence thing? And apparently, yes, it's happening, but it's just so wild. Like, that every part when he, like, the scene where he crosses the road, right? I mean, oh my god, holy shit.
That was, there's two scenes in this movie that were surprisingly powerful. That was probably the number one, where, God, it's so like you. I mean, on some level, you know he's gonna make it because it's a movie. But also, God, I've never been that on the edge of my seat and, like, couldn't look away from the screen because of the way it's shot, and he doesn't change his pace, but it comes, so close every single time. It comes so close, and it's just executed so well. The other moment that I really liked is when he's in the desert at night and they're all eating a bean together, and like one of the little I don't even know what animals these are because they're also dirty and ugly. It's hard to say.
I honestly couldn't tell either.
Yeah, but one of the little rodent guys, like, gives this really heartfelt speech about how it really has taken a load off of his heart to have Rango in town to give them hope. And it really hit me. I was like, wow, they got me. They got me. The movie got me. It's a silly movie with lizard sheriff. I loved it.
Yeah, that's, I think, the more we talk about movies, and the more we talk about movies we end up really, really liking, the thing that I keep going back to is sincerity, right? Is a movie that takes its concept, which is on the surface a ridiculous concept, and it takes it seriously. Like, yes, Rango is a movie about a bent-necked chameleon who's trying to fake his way into finding something. But it doesn't wink at you. Like, that's not even true. The funny thing about this movie is it does wink at you. It winks at you with the Clint Eastwood reference. It winks at you with the Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas reference. It winks at you with the absurdity of this whole thing.
Yeah.
And yet, when it knows that it's supposed to take itself seriously, when it knows that we're supposed to let the pathos of the chameleon come through to where you can feel it, it lets that happen. It lets those moments happen. It doesn't turn those moments on the joke. Yeah, you're absolutely right. That moment, like the moment with the bean, the moment where he's standing in front of the sheriff's office talking about hope and talking about justice and talking about order and how these things are some of the most important things in the world. And as long as I'm here, we'll have them. I mean, those are things that it lets happen.
Yeah. I think that, just from the perspective of understanding why the story works, like the characters played by, I don't know how to say this name, Isla Fisher and
I think
Abigail.
It's actually Isla Fisher.
Isla Fisher and Abigail Breslin, Beans and Priscilla, the love interest and the little girl, respectively, they're the heart, and they're also cool parts of the action at different times. But the point is, I think that the like what you were describing, the actual seriousness and correct level of actually letting the beats, the emotional beats land relies on having characters like that to bounce them off of, because I think like if those weren't in the movie, it would be a massive loss, actually.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking in terms of like how to structure a story like this, where you do like it is a ridiculous story. It is absurd. And so, okay, we're going to have to try extra hard to root and anchor this story, the actual drama of the story, the actual emotionality. And so, yeah, you really need to have characters like that who serve that role specifically. And they do, and it works perfectly.
Yeah, no, I love it. Beans is a very good character, and
Yeah.
I'm not just saying that because her name is Beans, which I find hilarious, but
Yeah.
I mean, like, again, to go into the Western tropes, this is like the I mean, Matt, this is Susan Delgado, almost literally.
yeah, except she doesn't go blank when she gets agitated. But no,
Sure.
I think that's perfect. Yeah, that is a trope, I suppose. Yeah.
Yeah. Loves her father, wants to do right by her father and her father's land, and gets like and is the only one trying to look at what's going on around here. And Rango goes and helps her and saves the town and brings water to the town. Some person's gonna come out to that shutoff valve when they realize that there's no water going to Vegas, though, because they broke the pipe.
Yeah. Well, they'll just you know how these things go. They'll figure it out. They'll find a way. That's the thing is now you know that they have the resourcefulness, they have the hope, and they'll find a way somehow.
And they get Rango.
That's right.
I can't get over Johnny Depp's performance. I know we talked about this already, but I really just can't get over it. Like the way he goes back and forth between this, like it's actually, I think it's harder to play someone pretending to be someone cool than it seems, right? Because he's not only does he have to play this cool, collected cowboy dude, but he has to pretend to be someone pretending to be that.
Right.
And I think he pulls it off. I really do. I think there's like, you can see in that performance why the people around him would buy into his bullshit, but also you can still see the Hawaiian shirt guy. Like you can see that version of him underneath it all too.
Yeah.
The movie allows for both of those things to exist at the same time.
Yeah. Well, sure. I think a lot of that actually comes down to, I don't know if it's directing or the animators, but like showing him give little nervous expressions, when other people aren't looking, and then but yeah, like the voice acting too, of course, is he does the classic Johnny Depp like confabulation, which somehow is part of a lot of his characters. Like it's a Jack Sparrow thing.
Sure.
It is sort of a Fear and Loathing thing.
Yeah. I really liked the chorus that this gives us, like the mariachi band chorus, which is like, we've been talking a lot about Western, and I think the reason why Westerns were so popular for so long is because Westerns play into a lot of the very ancient type of archetypal storytelling, right? The hero's journey type stuff. And in this hero's journey, we have a literal chorus that is kind of filling us, the audience, in on the story of our character. And I think this is playing into a lot of just like very ancient storytelling techniques in really fun ways to attract children.
Oh yeah. No, I love especially the chorus being like, this is I don't remember exactly, like this is the tale of the death of Rango, and then he lives through it. He's like, but he's gonna die, right? Oh yeah. Yeah, he's definitely gonna die just later.
Oh my God.
I want to watch it again, honestly.
I this is a movie, I would love to study, because there is so much going on here, and there's so many characters. Like what I love, we haven't talked about them because I don't remember their names, but like this town gets so fleshed out in character. Like we've talked about Beans and we've talked about Priscilla, but I mean, we have Roadkill. We have, I'm looking at this now to remember it, but we have the guy who's playing the Native American bird. Wounded Bird, I think, is the name of it. Yeah, like we have the guy with the arrow through him. Like there's so many different characters, like just like actor characters, playing all these bit townspeople parts. And because the artwork is so distinct, because the style of the movie is so distinct, you really imprint on all these characters and you remember them, and you know who this is and how they feel about Rango and how they feel about everything. And so when he rounds up the posse and they go after the water thieves, and these people come with him, it's like very, like you just know, you just get a feeling. It feels like a place. Like it feels like these are all fully fleshed out characters, even though we get very limited time with them. I don't know, man. I just love it.
Yeah. I don't have much more to add. Really snuck up on me. I sat down to it just sort of being like, okay, what am I getting into exactly? Like I didn't remember anything about this. Like I vaguely knew, like, okay, Johnny Depp, I think, and CGI cartoon. It's going to be cartoony. It's going to be silly. It's probably going to be okay. Let me look at the cover art. Yeah, it looks like a comedy. Okay, yeah, it's going to be funny. It's like so much more to it than I expected. I think a big problem is I don't have like a. If you'd asked me before this week, like, who is Gore Verbinski, I don't think I would have really had him in the correct box.
Oh man.
But yeah, like I don't know if I've talked about Mouse Hunt enough, but like Mouse Hunt, I just love Mouse Hunt. It's like it's just a perfect little clockwork. Like it's a simple, very few characters, very simple, but it has like just the right number of like fun plot evolutions to it, where you're just constantly like that's one of those movies where you keep just going like no, and then like it gets worse and worse. Like it's the dropping animals on the characters type thing where you're just loving how much it sucks for the characters. I don't know. You have feelings about Mouse Hunt? I don't actually.
I know that I've seen Mouse Hunt. I honestly cannot remember it at all.
It's very fun.
I'm sure it is. Like it's Nathan Lane. So
yeah, right. If we do deconstructing Verbinski, then we'll have to talk about Mouse Hunt. So
we sure will, because I believe it's his first feature. Film. Yeah. I just think it's so funny that I just like there's so many amazing Verbinski movies, and I just like I had no idea that you rode this hard for Mouse Hunt. When most people think about, like, if you asked a person that knew vaguely about Gore Verbinski and you said what was their first movie, I think most people would say The Mexican.
Yeah.
Because that was a very big movie. That movie did very well. I mean, it's freaking Brad Pitt and Julia Roberts, I think. Right. Really good movie. Liked that movie a lot. I don't think about Mouse Hunt, but maybe we should. We should
all be thinking about Mouse Hunt more.
Love it. Anything else you wanted to say about this movie? I feel like we haven't talked as long as we normally do, but I have nothing but praise for this film. Like I really do. I think if anyone is listening to this and has not seen Rango, I'm not even sure how good of a job we did on selling exactly what it is, because it's just kind of crazy and wonderful.
Yeah, I guess I do always like to complain when people inaccurately portray aquifers. So this is yet another film portraying aquifers as being big caves underwater that are underground that are full of water, which is not what aquifers are.
I know you've said that, and I will live my life and I will die not believing
That's
you.
fine, I suppose. that's your privilege.
Where's the water?
So you know how if you fill up a bucket with sand and then you pour water into it, the water will go into it?
Uh-huh.
That's how the ground is.
Yeah, but then that water would be all dirty.
It is dirty.
Well, how do we drink it?
Well, okay, it's not muddy. It's full of minerals. That's where the minerals come from. Because there's no mud deep down. It's
how we get water out of sand.
You suck it out with a straw.
How does sand not come too?
Well, you have a screen around the well.
I don't believe
around the
you.
hole.
I think they're walking through this giant cave system, and one of the characters says this is an aquifer, and that's what.
All right.
Why would they lie?
That's good. I'm gonna find a way to get revenge on you for this. But there, I think more the reason I mentioned that is like I actually love that sequence anyway, just because I love every setting. Every setting in this movie is like you want to like frame a picture of it, you know.
Yeah,
like this.
Remember the giant creepy eye?
The giant creepy eye, enormous creepy eye that is barely commented on, and you're like, what is that supposed to be?
I don't know.
We're just moving on. Okay, that's not going to come back in any way. That was great.
It's wonderful. The everything about this is wonderful.
Yeah.
What a fun movie. Y'all, go watch Rango. I seriously want to go watch Rango again. And if we end up doing Gore Verbinski, I really want to I think by the time we get to Rango and a Gore Verbinski deconstructing directors, I think we will have a really good hand on his style. And just like this movie feels like a Verbinski movie in a way I don't know how well I can articulate besides big ridiculous action set pieces and weird nonsense. But I love it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess when I think of Verbinski, I just think like, oh, I'm gonna have a fun time, because that's what all of his movies are. I guess The Mexican isn't necessarily strictly fun.
No, neither is The Weatherman. Oh my god.
Oh yeah, okay. I haven't actually seen The Weatherman.
Have you seen The Ring? If we do a Gore Verbinski thing, you're gonna have to watch a spooky. Are you ready? Are you ready mentally to watch a spooky?
I'm actually not sure if I've seen this version of The Ring. I think I have though.
Okay.
I think I have.
This is one of the only horror movies I got to see in theaters with my family because for some reason they wanted to go, and it scared them.
That was foolish of them.
Yeah, very scary movie. Loved it.
Yes, it is.
Good job, Gore Verbinski. Okay, I think that's it for Rango. Go see it. It's on both Hulu and Amazon Prime for freezies. So
yeah,
shoot, guys. No
Which
excuses.
Is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Doof.
All right, Matt. Let's talk about charity.
The fiction kind.
Yes, the fiction kind of charity. Let's talk about reading and how you and I read. So we're going to link to Matt's article in the show notes, but let's summarize the article as quickly as we can, Matt, without reading it all. You and I, over the course of doing We've Got Worm, over the course of having this conversation, honestly, for me, over the course of having to watch a lot of anime that I don't particularly like, have kind of inadvertently or maybe advertently developed this kind of, I don't want to call it a theory or a philosophy. It feels too formal to call it a theory or a philosophy.
Yeah.
But just like a stance.
Yeah, stance is the word that I went to because it's not like I have deep philosophical beliefs that you have to read this way or watch that. I'm just going to say read to mean consume,
sure,
because that's easier, and also it's fine. But it's a mode that you can turn on and off. Like I definitely am not saying, oh, I always consume everything in this sort of semi-delusional stance where I'm believing that the creators did everything perfectly and exactly as they intended. Like that's incorrect. It's more like it's just a way of pushing yourself to consider that you need to be paying really close attention to all of the details and all of the choices, because first of all, the storytelling choices and in a film, like choices in terms of how things are being shown to you visually, are usually way more intentional and crafted than you necessarily realize. At least for me, as someone who, I don't have a formal film education.
Sure.
So just putting yourself in the stance of like being open to the idea that everything you're seeing has been carefully crafted, you're probably gonna notice a lot more that way. That's one thing that it does for you. Another that I think I've talked about is like, I can't count the number of times that I started watching or reading something with an attitude of like, okay, well, I guess I'll give this a try. No, I see where this is going.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, this old trope again. And then like after being a ways into the thing, suddenly the thing surprises me. And then I realize, oh, I've been just kind of half paying attention, plotting through this thing.
Mm-hmm.
And only now do I realize that this thing is actually much more clever than I realized. And now I'm not going to go back and reread all the stuff that I just read, because I'm just not. But it makes you realize like, oh, I've made a mistake. I've made a mistake by not extending this thing some charity in the first place, by not reading it with the assumption that it was going to be doing something interesting.
Right.
And that happens to me over and over. And I've just learned like, okay, I'm just going to assume the best from now on, or at least I try to.
Yeah. And I think so. The first principle there that you've kind of been circling around is, I think we've kind of distilled it down to a sentence that is a little tongue in cheek, folks.
Yeah.
So don't freak out. But
a little hyperbolic.
Yes, a little hyperbolic for emphasis, but the principle is assume the author is a genius and every choice is intentional. And I think people get hung up on the first part, which is supposed to be a little tongue in cheek, supposed to be a little hyperbolic. I think this is to me, this is what this type of reading is not, is saying I have to love everything I watch, saying that every author is a genius. Saying I have to agree all times with that. It is not saying that you are not allowed to criticize something while you're reading it, and you are not allowed to not like something, right? Like, when I thought about this and when I was thinking about what you were saying, one of the things I did is I went back and watched Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker, and I think you did as well.
Yeah, you could. It was in the room when where I was.
Sure. Well, I watched it, and this is a movie I do not like. I do not like this movie. I think it is a bad movie, and I do not think J.J. Abrams is a genius, right?
Yeah.
However, I do think if you attempt to go into a movie with this idea, just kind of orient yourself from the idea of, everything he did in this movie was on purpose and was for a reason, and the reasons are clever and smart and will lead to a better film. Obviously, it's not true in this case, right? And the other thing is, like, you talked about the decision making in film and movies and books and television and any kind of art or any kind of entertainment are a series of hundreds, thousands, and hundreds of thousands of macro and micro choices, right? Mm-hmm. Choices, some of which the creator has control over and some of which the creator has no control over. But we, the consumer of the thing, are never going to have a full access to those suite of choices, right? Like, you look at The Rise of Skywalker, and a lot of the choices they made structurally with that film around Princess Leia, they made because Carrie Fisher died, and they could not use her in a way they originally wanted to. And that is a choice that we know because we are people that exist in this world, and we're aware that she passed away and aware that they made these choices around her character. And that is one thing we definitely know about. And you can look at the movie and you can see the ways in which they very clearly wrote dialogue around Carrie Fisher and which things they had her said, which things they had already had her record. And so they just kind of tried to craft a scene around 2 lines of dialogue that Carrie Fisher said 4 years ago. And you can see that and see how it doesn't work at all.
Yeah.
But you could also look at it and say, okay, let's ignore the external factors. And let's say, why was this done in this movie, right? Why was this choice made here? And I think when you do that, or at least when you try to do that, because I think one thing that you're saying here is that this is really hard to do sometimes. And even when you believe it and think it's for the best, you can't sometimes, like, or you struggle with it, or it can be very difficult. But I do think something comes out of that, because I enjoyed The Rise of Skywalker better this time than I did the first time I saw it. Because the first time I saw it, I was so wound up in how stupid all the decisions were. And I was so wound up in the fact that these decisions were stupid and wrong. And the reasons they were wrong are because they were specifically trying to fix, quote unquote, fix things that were done in the previous movie, or were trying to work with things. And it destroyed my viewing of the movie. I still do not think this movie is good, Matt. It is not a good movie. But I appreciated the things it was trying to do a little bit more.
Yeah.
This is a movie that is very much about the past, very much about reckoning with your past, reckoning with both the past you had control over and the past you did not have any control over, reckoning with family and what found family versus assigned family. It is doing a lot of interesting things with those. And I don't think it does them well. Don't get me wrong. Bad movie. But there's a lot going on in this movie, and there's more going on in this movie than I gave it credit for.
Yeah. I think, I mean, just to kind of riff on that, what I was noticing while watching it, and during at least the time when I was able to keep my charity glasses on, is okay. So for one thing, I very recently watched Star Trek 2009. Or Star Trek, the Star Trek, as Red Letter Media calls it. And that really reminded me, like, okay, this is J.J. Abrams. J.J. Abrams is flash, dazzle, affectation, speed, just an unceasing sequence of visually dramatic things happening.
Yeah.
And also rather shocking lack of substance behind all of that. And that's so that sounds a bit uncharitable, right? But the thing is, then you go over to Star Wars and you're like, okay, well, I mean, if I am paying attention to this on the level of the visual aspect of it, it's all great. Like the whole intro bit where they're doing the light speed skipping and all of that, like the Star Wars fan in me is like, light speed skipping, what the shit is this? I'm enraged. This is not, this counters everything we were led to. But like, that's not the way in which J.J. Abrams thinks or makes movies or thinks about stories. J.J. Abrams does not care about the fact that it makes no sense that you would need a wayfinder to follow a thing through a region of space instead of just going around it. None of that matters to J.J. Abrams. And he wants, like, and if that's mattering to you, then, like, okay, I'm not saying you're wrong to let that matter to you, because obviously it's just true. It's just true that that's kind of silly. But you have to at least put yourself in the frame where you could potentially be swept up into the J.J. Abrams universe of thinking about the way stories work before you even have a chance of letting the movie work on you.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the things that I really was paying attention to is how each and every member of our core trilogy of characters, trilogy is the wrong word, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Our trio, reckon with a piece of their past. Like we have Rey, who's the whole core of the movie is her reckoning with what happened to her when she was a kid and where she comes from and this search for identity based on where she came from and where she is now. We have Finn, who, you know, clunkily, but through his discovering other former stormtroopers who rebelled and came out, is reckoning with his past. And then we have Poe, who is kind of visiting a planet in which he used to be a spice runner and finding a person from that past and reckoning with that. And these are like all people, and it's not the best, right? It doesn't it doesn't work entirely, but I can see the structure of it. Like I can see what they were going for here. And I mean, you've talked about this movie more than I have. You did a whole YouTube video about how you would fix it, which I thought was marvelous. But like I can see the moments and I can see the structural elements and I can see the things that Abrams was doing and trying to do to kind of create this trio that was. I mean, I think one of the things this movie is trying to do is it's trying to reckon the prequel trilogy, the original trilogy, and the first two movies that came before it all at once. And that's why it's a movie that feels so stuffed and rushed, and because it's just tearing from set piece to set piece, tearing from moment to moment, not pausing at all in between. But it's trying to reckon with 40 years of Star Wars at once. It's doing that by having its characters look back a lot, look back not to their past, look back to the past of the movies, in a way that I think The Last Jedi does a better job than it. But when I walked out of the movie the first time, I saw this as like, this is a refutation of everything The Last Jedi did. It's intentional. It's taking digs at that. It's trying to appease the fans. I think I can see the idea of the through line between The Last Jedi and this movie now. Mm-hmm. I still don't like it, but I think I can see it. And I think forcing myself to just say like, okay, J.J. Abrams is a genius. And if J.J. Abrams is a genius and this means something, let's try to figure out what it means.
Yeah, sure. I mean, just to be like, whenever I watch this movie now, by default, I'm in my all right, I'm going to tear this shit apart mode, and I can't help it really because I spent a day making a YouTube video about everything wrong with it and how I would fix it. But that's a lie though. I can help it because with effort I can push myself into that mode where, like you, I'm seeing like one thing I realized toward the beginning is I was like, oh, this is sort of like kind of campy actually. Mm-hmm. Like some of this works on the level of camp where it doesn't work at all on sort of the more like serious like prequels tone, doesn't work at all in like the Rogue One tone. Like the tone this is camp. Then of course the movie I think diverges from camp and becomes melodrama. But at least toward the beginning, like a lot of it is like, okay, it's silly. It's silly. If you don't understand that it's trying to be silly, then you think it's stupid. Yeah. And I think that would be an error. And I mean, an understandable error, honestly. Yeah. But like that's the thing is, I don't know. It's weird. This is a fun conversation. It's interesting. The thing is, I generally think of this as a tool that I'm going to apply to a thing that I'm approaching for the first time.
Sure.
In order to force myself to have an adequately open mind about that thing. Yeah. Because like I'm going to be honest, when we started like Psycho-Pass, for example, as it started, it just was like bam, bam, bam with like the tropes that I was like, oh my God, it's just, I'm drowning in anime tropes. I'm exhausted. And then I was like, no, like be open-minded to the idea that this is doing something beyond the tropes or something interesting with the tropes or something just in general. What am I missing? And then I ended up loving Psycho-Pass. I know you didn't, that's fine. But it happens to me a lot actually, where you can never be open-minded enough on the first pass through something,
Yeah.
I agree. And maybe you end up hating that thing still. That's fine. That's
the thing that so your article got shared a few places and so we got to see some of the criticism of it. And there's some fair criticism of this philosophy. I think a lot of the stuff I saw was like, no, that's bad. And my response is just, why? Like, yeah. I look at this philosophy and I say, what is the worst possible thing that could happen if you follow this to the letter?
Yeah.
And the only thing I could come up with, the worst case scenario, is that you end up really loving something that just isn't very good, right?
Yeah.
And so what? Who cares? Like that's, I mean, like this is, I don't think this is a principle to be used like to scientifically analyze storytelling or break down storytelling. I think this is a principle to be used to consume storytelling, to when you are sitting in front of a book or a movie or a TV show and you're saying, okay, I am here to enjoy myself. That's why I am here. That's why I am opening this book, because I want to have fun. I think this will make you have more fun and it will make you enjoy it better.
Right. I think like there was a certain variety of criticism that was like, won't this lead to you sticking with something that you should have dropped? And to me, I'm just like, how often do you find yourself in that situation?
Right.
Like I usually finish things that I start anyway, even before I found like I don't usually read a lot of like things that are so incredibly long that I would be better off if I stopped them, I guess. So it's just not something that came up. I don't know. It was interesting to see the pushback, because I'm just like, that seems like such a rare situation that I just don't think it would really come up that often.
And I think you can have this mindset and still decide, hey, I don't think this is for me, and drop something that you're not enjoying.
Sure. Yeah. It's again, it's not meant to be the way you live your life. It's just sort of like, hey, maybe try this. You know, there were two more kind of bullet points on the article.
Yeah, we haven't talked about those other two.
Do you want to go through those real quick? Yeah. So
let's do it.
So number 2 was, I called it inner skepticism. Being wrong about the real causes of your feelings is the default. Mm-hmm. And this is definitely something that I have like repeatedly, I guess, discovered over the course of doing all these discussions with you. And I think it like marked a kind of leveling up for me in terms of criticism and thinking about stories when I realized this, because like you go to our first podcasts, and a thing that I would do is be like, I didn't like this. I would like pick something, and then I would be like, this is what was wrong with it. Mm-hmm. And I think more recently I'm likely to be like, well, I didn't think this thing worked, and I think that the reason was this, but I'm not sure. And it could have been this other thing over here, and I think overall maybe it would have worked if this had worked, but I'm not sure about that either. Basically, I speak in a much more skeptical way about the reasons for my own feelings about the work. And what's funny is that's a sort of a more what's the word? It's sort of a weaker way of speaking.
Sure.
But I think it's way more accurate, and I'm learning a lot more. Even though I sound like really uncertain, I'm learning a lot more because I'm like working through different permutations of like, well, yeah, I didn't like this. I think this didn't work. But just because I think that, does that mean if that had been fixed, would I have liked it suddenly? No, probably not. There's probably something else keeping me from liking it. Okay, let's think further about it. And just, you really only have to push yourself a little bit to be like, well, really that's the key question. What I just said right there. Okay, you don't like it? Say why you don't like it. Okay, let's say that were fixed. Would you like it now? Yes or no? Probably no in most cases. and that prompts you to think a little bit further.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think like I want to talk about something in the Web Serial Award, and I can't because I can't spoil it here. Uh-huh. But this approach to me, I always like to, when I don't like something, the question, I mean, the first question is, why don't I like it, right? And then and the second question is, am I maybe looking at it the wrong way? Mm-hmm. And I think this is so interesting because there was a thing in the famously optimistic and as some people have said, too charitable podcast we did covering a book I quite love, actually, called Ward, which is so weird. Like, how are you too I don't understand.
Yeah, I don't want to.
Basically, all people mean when they say you're being too charitable to the thing is that they didn't like it and you did.
Yeah,
basically.
Right. Yeah, you're being too fair, or you're not being fair enough.
Yeah,
means you don't agree with me exactly on the thing.
Right.
Yeah.
But there was a part of that book near the end of it where something happened that I just did not like. And I said that on the show. I do not like the way this has ended. I do not like it. And then I spent like a day sitting with this. Like, this is a book that I've loved basically the entire way through, little nitpicks and stuff like that I never bothered to air on the show because who wants to listen to that? But this was a plot event, a huge movement of the story that I didn't like. And I sat with it for a while, and I tried to dive into why don't I like this, and I ended up, and part of this happened like spontaneously on the show as like part of this I have written down prior, but some of it is just like my brain finally connected dots that I was trying to work through in my head, and to find a way where, oh, I understand why it's doing this now. Like I understand what the author was going for now. I understand. And I'm still not sure I loved it, but I appreciated it on such a higher level because I found a way to see it. And I mean, the honest truth about reading and analyzing is you don't know if that's anything you just said there was true, right? You don't know if this brilliant thing you came up that makes the choice make sense to you was intended. But it doesn't matter if it was intended or not. If you found meaning in it that made you appreciate the work more, great.
Yeah.
Awesome. That's the goal.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and I mean, further along that line, like I think everything I read before I was like 20 years old, I probably didn't understand any of the reasons why I felt anything about it. And that's fine. That's not I'm not like saying like if you aren't being hyper analytical as you read, then you're doing it wrong. It's more like, you know, I read Dune the first time when I was 12 and it impacted me tremendously. But I didn't understand at all that Paul was not supposed to be admirable. Because I was 12, and that is essentially a wrong reading. Like if that word means anything, it's a wrong reading, right? And so, in order to fully, you know, if I had some means of like asking myself questions at that age, you know, reading that book, maybe I would have dug deeper into it. I don't know. It's that's all. That's just a tool that I've used because I'm always sort of reading to understand and deconstruct so that I can understand how a thing was made and then rip it off for my own purposes. And the only way to really understand how emotions work in stories is if you do this little experiment with yourself where you say like, okay, well, do I really understand why this made me feel this way or why this failed to make me feel this way? And if you just stop at like I didn't like it, didn't work for me, then you can't learn anything from that.
Yeah, I agree.
And then the third bullet point, if we're done with that one, was ownership. Take responsibility for your reading. And this is something I think that you and I don't know if we always did this. I don't think we always did this. I think it just made our discussions much better, and it developed as a thing because we don't argue about who's right and who's wrong about an interpretation. If you have an interpretation and I didn't have that interpretation, I'm just going to be like, oh, cool, interesting.
Yeah.
Let me see if that matches with my interpretation. Mostly, but what about this thing?
Yeah.
And then we're just discussing our interpretations. It doesn't even feel like it sort of feels like a nonsensical thing to say that we need to like make them fight and see which one wins. Like no, that's I'm interested in more interpretations, broader interpretations. I'm interested in an interpretation that contradicts mine.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I've argued with a lot of people that have listened to our shows that disagreed with how I saw things. But I also always appreciated that I got to see their frame of reference, where they came from. And yeah, this is something that has taken me a long time to get to, because I think when you come to anything with your interpretation, you are going to believe that yours is the quote unquote right interpretation, right? Because if you didn't believe that, it wouldn't be your interpretation, right. You know?
Yeah.
But yeah, I totally agree with that. I mean, I think you and I agree a lot. We don't always agree. We see things differently, but yeah, we don't argue because I think that's just a waste of time. And frankly, I don't think it's very fun to listen to two people argue. Some people think it is.
I think people maybe think we agree more than we do, simply because when you say a thing and I say, yeah, that's really interesting, that's interpreted as agreement instead of acknowledgement.
Sure.
Where like I don't feel a need to agree or disagree. It's just like, oh yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
It's true. I do like that. I didn't see it that way. I still don't necessarily see it that way. That's fine. Yeah. I mean, sometimes sometimes someone will have a take on something where I'm just like, I just don't think that's in there. and that's fine. That's normal. That's human. And I don't really see any reason to like reject that. I don't see any reason to be like, no, Matt, find a way that they're right. I'll just be like, no, I don't see that in there. And then I'll just move on with my life.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. And like, again, this is your opinions about the ways in which you like to read, and they have made you experience consuming art a more enjoyable thing. That doesn't mean that it's the right way. It doesn't mean that it doesn't like it does like I feel like I'm getting defensive here, and I don't mean to. I find this a fascinating way to look at art. I find it a fascinating way to approach things, especially things like I said, we through our incentive program on our Patreon, we end up watching a lot of things and reading a lot of things that I had no plan to watch and read. And some of them I love, like Rango, and some of them I don't care for. And I still know I have to sit in front of a microphone and talk about that thing for 45 minutes to an hour. And it's like, okay, how do I do this? How do I do this in a way that seems satisfying and entertaining, but is not just me saying, this thing was bad and I don't like it because it was bad. And I think these are techniques that we have kind of, not consciously, but just developed over the course of our podcasting time that has helped me approach the things that people ask us to look at, and approach them with a mindset that allows me to pick the things I like out of them.
Well, I also think like the times when you and I are disappointed in ourselves, like when we feel like we didn't do our best on an episode, is when speaking for myself, when I have sort of strayed from one of these in a way where in retrospect, I'm like, I can't, I clearly broke principle number 3. I railed about this thing and how terrible it was. Oh, and in reality, it's like, look, that's just my reading. That's a thing that's entirely happening inside my head. Some other person could consume this thing that they're going to have a wildly different experience with it. Their experience is going to be wildly positive. They're not wrong. How could they be? That makes no sense. Right. Yeah.
To me, this gets into what is quote unquote criticism. And when you published this thing, we had a wonderful conversation that I did not participate in because I was playing Final Fantasy, but I was observing in the corner of my eye the conversation that was going on in our Discord about your article. And it kind of delved into this conversation about what is criticism? What is the role of a critic in media discourse? And to me, personally, the role of a critic is to watch something, is to tell people how it made you feel, and tell them why you think it made you feel that way. To me, that's what criticism is. If I didn't like it, here's why I think I didn't like it. If I did like it, here's why I think I liked it. And here's what I think it's doing and why I like that or why I didn't like that. That's what criticism is. That's all it is. And I think when I am going to critique something, when I am going to write about something or talk about something, I think approaching it like the author is a genius and everything is intentional allows me to be much more aware of how I am personally reacting to it than just sitting down to watch it with to me, it's acknowledging your biases and trying to turn them off in a way that is satisfying to me, which is like no critic is not biased. No consumer of media does not have a bias towards the thing they're consuming in one way or another. But if we're aware of that bias, if we're conscious of it, then it allows us to frame our conversation and our enjoyment and our consumption around those biases. Yeah.
I think that it bears discussion to realize what's happening in your head when you're consuming something. Like, I mean, just this time watching Star Wars: The Rise of the Skywalker, just now, or not just now, but yesterday and today. I was, I'm watching the beginning. I already mentioned this. Watching the beginning, they start doing the light speed skipping, and it's like in the movie Inside Out, the red guy played by Lewis Black suddenly goes, here they are with the fucking light speed skipping. Holy shit. And and that is my experience in that moment. My experience in that moment is my eyes are watching movie. My brain is screaming with frustration that this is so stupid. And that is a gestalt moment. Like those two things are my reading, my experience of the movie. And it's like, well, I can choose not to do that. I can choose not. I can put on a different pair of glasses, and I can think, okay, shut up, voice. What is happening here? What is the film doing with this? Why is the film doing this? Okay, well, J.J. Abrams doesn't think about things the same way I do, obviously. So that's so she's not trying to insult me personally.
Right.
So I can already relax a little bit. He just doesn't think about this the same way, and then just like get yourself to calm down.
Right.
And then you're basically consuming the movie. You're basically consuming a different movie, right? Movie with voices screaming in your head about how stupid it is a different experience from movie with an open, questioning, open-minded attitude.
Yeah. I mean, that to me, that was every time the movie threw away a quote that was obviously supposed to fix something in The Last Jedi, like when the Hobbit says, "We need to do some holdo maneuvers," and the movie says, "Come on, those are 1 in a million," and like you just roll your eyes because it's like telling the audience, like it's specifically designed to instruct the audience. And then every moment with Leia, like I talked about already, where it's obvious that this was a scene constructed around 2 lines of dialogue, she said, and it's kind of awkward, and it kind of exposes itself in a way that I think, as much as I understand they were trying to honor her memory, the memory of Carrie Fisher, I think the movie would have just been better if they just wrote her out of it and didn't have to construct the sequences around the pieces of dialogue. But like, yeah, I mean, it's just like, or you could try to look at it as, okay, what is the scene actually doing? Like, what is the purpose of the scene? What is the moment of the scene? And I think that trying to push past those little inside out anger mans into your head allows you to kind of meet the movie on its level more than your level.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I specifically picked to do this for this movie because I hated it so much, because I loved The Last Jedi so much. I love that movie. I still love that movie. I think it's brilliant. I do legitimately think Rian Johnson is a genius. I don't have to force my brain into a mindset to think that. And I was so mad at this movie for the choices it made. And I still don't think it's a good movie, right? Like, I think that's the thing I want to be absolutely clear on. This is a bad movie. It's a bad movie. I think it's less of a bad movie than it was the first time I saw it.
Yeah, sure. It's just sometimes it's fun. Sometimes it's fun to have the little angry man in your head.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure.
But you need to be aware that is what is happening. I think that you have lost something if you go about your life not realizing that you have the choice of whether you're going to invite angry man for this particular viewing of this movie.
Yeah.
And that's what this is really about to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there were a lot of people in The Last Jedi who loved to hang out with that angry man. And
sure.
Because of it, they weren't able to see the things that the movie was doing. And
I think, yeah, that happens with any movie where there's big expectations.
Yep.
First time I saw Men in Black, I was expecting it to be a serious science fiction film. I was extremely disappointed. I was actually crushed. Because I was a kid and my emotions were strong. Crushingly disappointed by Men in Black. Watched it again years later. It's Men in Black. It's great. It's a great movie.
Yeah, it's great.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Expectations,
biases, internal experience, every single thing that is you and that you have experienced is you're bringing in with you to these movies and these books. That is just how it works.
Yep.
And maybe being aware of those things will help you enjoy the thing a little bit better, even if it's a thing that's no good, like The Rise of Skywalker. I raised it on Letterboxd 0.5 star, Matt. 0.5 star.
Wow.
I know.
Amazing. Okay. Well, Scott, I think we have.
We talked about that more than I thought we were going to do, but I should have known.
Yeah. Well, it's good because we never really explicitly talked about this, even though I think it's something we've talked about a little bit between ourselves, but not on a show.
Yeah.
So I'm glad we did.
Yeah, me too.
Doof.
All right, let's go to our final segment of the week. We're going to talk about last week's episode, which was us reviewing and talking about the movie Stardust. We sent this out to our listeners to vote on it, and while the number of listeners that voted on this were for some reason much less than Mad Max Fury Road and Into the Spider-Verse, we did get enough votes to come to a conclusion. And man, was it close, Matt. 53 to 47%. Yes, Stardust is entered into the Doof canon. I figured this was going to be close. I did not know which way it was going to be close. In my mind, I was like, it's going to be like 55-45, and it's going to be yes or no, 55-45. And it was yes. So I was kind of right on there. I don't know. How do you feel about this? Are you happy? I know we both ended up concluding on yes, but are you happy now that it is done?
Yeah, I mean, I am. I feel like the listeners were about as ambivalent as we were, honestly. Like we had our like, yeah, we really like this movie. It's a really fun movie. Does it belong in the canon? I think so. And so I think that was expressed by everyone else, and I can totally. That's the thing, is I totally see everybody who said no, and I totally see everybody who said yes, and I feel both sides of that. But now that it's in there, I think I'm happy with that. So
yeah. I think one of the pieces of feedback we did get that I was actually kind of shocked at myself was people were like, I can't believe you didn't talk about The Princess Bride at all during this review. And it just never occurred to me, Matt. It just never occurred to me. Like, obviously, I've seen The Princess Bride many, many times, and the comparisons are very apt. It is very much a movie of a similar vein. But I just never made that in my head until after we released the episode.
Yeah, I mean, The Princess Bride to me exists in its own little pocket. Like, it's just it's kind of like nothing else.
Yeah, that's true.
True. Yeah, it didn't occur to me either.
I think some people were like, well, the thing that's stopping me from voting Stardust in is that The Princess Bride exists. And I'm like, yeah, that's fair. That's fair. But The Princess Bride is also like one of the most well-regarded movies ever. And again, I'm like, I kind of want some different things. So I am happy about this.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Yeah, I like, if The Princess Bride were in here, that would be fine too. But it's like, yeah, everybody knows The Princess Bride is great.
Right.
I like weird things.
Mm-hmm. I do too. So thank you everyone that voted yes or no. We do appreciate you taking the time to listen to us and vote and make your voice heard. If you are upset that The Princess Bride or that Stardust made it in, maybe you should round up a posse and go searching for some votes or something
through the aquifer.
Yeah. Matt, it's a giant hole in the ground, and when you suck up all the water, it leaves just a hole behind.
And then okay, all right. If there were that many caves under the never mind. We're done. I'm done talking about this.
All right, folks, that is all we had for this week. If you have any opinions on Rango or on our principles of charitable reading or on Stardust and its entry into our canon of great films, feel free to reach out to us via email at doofmedia@gmail.com or over on Twitter @doofmedia.
Yeah, if you're not already subscribed to this podcast, we encourage you to do so and ensure you never miss an episode. You can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, Google Play, and pretty much anywhere podcasts can be found.
And you should go to our website, which is doofmedia.com, where you can see all the other 10, 20 shows we currently are running over there. We have a bunch of different shows about a bunch of different topics. So go ahead and check that out, doofmedia.com. And if you like this show or any of those shows and you want to support us, please consider becoming a patron of Doof Media. Head on over to patreon.com/Doof Media, and you can pledge $1 a month, or you can pledge $20 a month, like CaptainRhino did to make us watch this incredible movie, Rango. Thank you so much, CaptainRhino. Thank you for making us watch that movie.
Indeed.
Matt, we are actually 18 patrons away from our newest stretch goal, which is what, Matt? What's our newest stretch goal?
Which is an original audio drama written by me.
Who?
Me, Matt Freeman, this man. And we're going to begin producing that whenever we pass that threshold. And it's I still haven't figured out the one sentence way of describing it, but it's a space opera, I suppose. Yeah, space opera.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we gave a really, really brief teaser on our Twitter account at Doof Media. So if you want to see just a very, very brief teaser, I have it pinned to our Twitter account right now, so you can go check that out. It's like a 2-sentence little bit of fun. This is something Matt has been working on for a while, and the fact that we are very close to it is very exciting. You can donate at any level, and you're counted as one of those 18 people we need to get over the hump on this. So thank you to everyone that has donated recently, that is getting us so close to this goal. We appreciate it, and we can't wait to share this thing with you. So hopefully we'll get there soon, and then we'll spin up production. It's something that we've never done before. We've never done an original work. We've never done an audio narrative. There's a whole bunch of like fancy audio things that you have to do that will be an entirely new experience for us, but we're excited to give it a shot, and we're excited for everyone to see it.
Yeah.
All right. That is it for us this week. Next week, we will be concluding our series on David Fincher, our Deconstructing Fincher series. We'll be talking about the movie Gone Girl. And I am excited to finish the series, Matt. This is a movie I enjoy, or I did enjoy. I think I saw it in the theaters once, and I haven't watched it since. But next week, Deconstructing Fincher comes to an end.
My name is Doof, and you'll do what I say. My name is Doof, and you'll do what I say.